Three ladies were at a cafe having lunch, and all were pregnant. Well, throughout the conversation, the topic of their pregnancy kept coming up, and of course, the manner of their conception. Well, the first woman says, I know I'm gonna have a boy because, well, when it happened, I was on top. Well, the second woman says, well, I know I'm gonna have a girl because when it happened, I was on the bottom. Well, the third woman is silent. She's got a stricken look on her face. Finally, she blurts out, oh no, I'm gonna have a doggy. A guy goes into a supermarket and tries to buy a half a head of lettuce. Well, the young produce assistant tells him that they only sell whole heads of lettuce. Well, the guy persists and gets a little angry and asks to see the manager. The boy says he'll ask the manager about it right away. So he walked into the back room and the boy said to the manager, some idiot wants to buy a half a head of lettuce. Well, just as he finished the sentence, he turned around to see the man standing right behind him. So he added, and this gentleman kindly offered to buy the other half. Well, the manager approved the deal and the guy went on his way. Well, later the manager said to the boy, I was pretty impressed with the way you handled yourself out there. Where are you from, son? Oh, I'm from Canada, sir. Well, why'd you leave Canada, the manager asked. Well, the boy says, sir, there's nothing up there but hockey players and hookers. Really, said the manager. My wife's from Canada. No kiddin', replied the kid. Who'd she play for? A zoo had acquired a very rare species of gorilla. Within a couple of weeks, the female gorilla became very ornery and difficult to handle. Well, upon examination, the vet determined the problem. The gorilla was in heat, and to make problems worse, there weren't any male gorillas around. While reflecting on their problem, the administrators of the zoo noticed Mike. He was the employee responsible for cleaning the cages. Mike, it was rumored, possessed a very ample ability to take care of any female, but he wasn't too bright. So the administrators thought that they might have a solution. Mike, he was approached with a proposition. Would he be willing to go at it with the gorilla for $500? Maybe calm her nerves a little bit. Well, Mike showed some interest, but he said he'd have to think about it. Well, the next day, Mike announced that he'd go ahead and accept their offer, but he had 3 conditions. First, he said, I don't want to have to kiss that thing. Second, I don't want nothing to do with any of the offspring. Well, the administrators quickly agreed, so they asked him, well, Mike, what's the third condition? Well, said Mike, you're going to have to give me another week to come up with the $500. Once there were a couple of twins, Joe and John. Well, Joe was the owner of an old boat, but it happened that John's wife passed the same day that Joe's boat sank. Well, a few days later, a nice old woman saw Joe and mistook him for John. She said, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. You must just feel terrible. Well, Joe, thinking that she was talking about his boat, said, well, hell, no, in fact, I'm sort of glad to be rid of her. She was a rotten old thing from the beginning. Her bottom was all shriveled up, and she smelled like old dead fish. She was always losing her water. She had a bad crack in her back, and a pretty big hole in her front, too. Every time I used her, her hole got bigger, and she leaked like crazy. I guess what really finally finished her off was when I rented her out to these 4 guys looking for a good time. I warned them that she wasn't very good, but they wanted to use her anyhow. Those fools tried to get in her all at once. Split her right up the middle. A guy comes home from work one day to find his dog with the neighbor's pet rabbit in his mouth. Well, the rabbit is definitely passed, and the guy panics. Well, he thinks the neighbors are going to hate him forever. So he takes the dirty, chewed-up rabbit into the house and gives it a bath. He blow-dries its fur and puts the rabbit back in the cage at the neighbor's house. Well, he's hoping that they'll think it passed the natural causes. Well, a couple of days later, the neighbor's outside and he asks the guy, hey, did you hear that Fluffy passed? Well, the guy stumbles around and says, no, what happened? Well, the neighbor says, oh, we just found him in the cage one day. But the weird thing is that the day after we buried him, we went outside and somebody had dug him up and gave him a bath and put him back in the cage. There's some real sick people out there, man. There were a couple of guys who had just gotten divorced from their wives, and they swore they'd never have anything to do with women again. Well, they were the best of friends and decided to move up to Alaska, as far north as they could, and never look at a woman again. Well, they got up there and went into the trader's store and told the guy, "Give us enough supplies for 2 men for 1 year." Well, the trader got the gear together, and on top of each one's supplies, he laid a board with a hole in it. Well, the guys said, "Well, what's the board for?" The trader says, "Well, where you're going, there's no women, and you might need this." Well, they say, "No way, we've sworn off women for life." Well, the trader says, "Look, why don't you take the boards with you? If you don't use them, I'll refund your money next year when you come in for supplies." "All right," they said, and they left. Well, the next year, one guy came into the trader's store and says, "Give me enough supplies for 1 man for 1 year." And the trader says, "Weren't you in here last year with your buddy?" "Yeah," says the guy. "Well, where is he?" asked the trader. "Well, you don't have to worry about him. He won't be coming back, if you know what I mean." Shocked, the trader says, "Well, why?" The guy says, "Well, I caught him in bed with my board." A couple had been married for many years, and their son had gotten old enough to date. Well, one day, the boy brought a girl over for dinner, while the mother was thrilled with her son's choice and couldn't wait for the wedding. However, the father was a little upset, and eventually the boy asked him, "Hey, Dad, you don't seem too happy with her. Mom likes her a lot." Well, the father explained, "No, son, there's nothing wrong with the girl. It's just that I cheated on your mother a long time ago, and that girl you've been dating, she's actually my daughter with that woman." So the boy dumped her and found himself another girl. Again, he brought the girl home to his mother's delight, but the father again told him that girl's actually his half-sister. Well, the boy lost his temper and told his mother everything. Well, his mother smiled, nodded, and said, "Don't listen to him, sweetheart. He isn't even really your father." Sam's been in the hectic newspaper business for 25 years when he decided that he was sick of the stress and quit his job. He bought 50 acres of land in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. Well, this place was so isolated that the postman only came once a week and he only went to the grocery store once a month. Well, after about 6 months of near total isolation, he hears a knock at the door. Well, he opens the door and sees a big bearded Vermonter standing there. He says, "I'm your neighbor from 4 miles over the ridge. Having a party on Saturday. Thought you'd like to come." "Well, great," says Sam. "After 6 months of living like this, I'm ready to meet some of the local folks. Thanks for inviting me." Well, just as he's about to leave, he stops and says, "I gotta warn you, though, there's gonna be some drinking at this party." "Well, that's not a problem," says Sam. "After 25 years in the newspaper business, I can drink with the best of 'em." Well, again, he starts to leave and then stops. More than likely gonna be some fighting, too." Well, Sam thinks to himself, "Well, I get along with people. Nah, don't worry about it, buddy. I'll be there. Thanks again." Well, once again, just about to leave, he turns and says, "I've seen some wild sex at these parties, too." "Now that won't be a problem," Sam says. "I've been up here all alone for 6 months. I will definitely be there. By the way, what should I wear?" Well, the big bearded guy stops and says, "Well, whatever you want. Just gonna be the two of us there anyhow." A young lady from up north was driving through a remote part of Arizona when her car broke down. Well, an Indian came riding by on horseback and offered to give her a ride into a nearby town. So she climbed up behind him on the horse and they rode off. Well, the ride into town was pretty uneventful, except that every couple of minutes the Indian would let out a loud whoop that echoed back through the hills. When they arrived into town, he let her off at the local gas station and yelled one final Yahoo! And rode off. "Hey, lady, what did you do to get that Indian so excited?" said the service station attendant. "Nothing," she said. "I just sat behind him on the horse, and I put my arms around his waist and held on to the saddle horn so I wouldn't fall off." "Lady, I don't know what you were holding on to, but Indians don't use saddles." Hey folks, Eddie here. Wonder if you could do me a favor. If you could leave me a comment below which one of these jokes was your favorite. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.